Welcome, Comic-Con at Home. I'm Jim Viscardi, executive editor over at comicbook.com, but you're not here for me. You are here for this guy, Todd McFarlane, the creator of Spawn, for his Spotlight panel. Todd, how the hell are you?
Good, Jim. Thanks for coming on board and doing this. I know it's
Oh.
a sort of odd situation here. I usually just get up on the panels myself and ramble, but I didn't think that would be nearly as effective as basically sort of two insiders going out and had a serious conversation, especially given the uniqueness of what we're trying to sort of deal with and what is now San Diego Comic-Con.
Right. I mean, this has got to be something. This is different, right? But for you, when you go to Comic-Con, it's not just you doing panels for Spawn or whatever. I mean, you bring the whole, McFarlane Toys cavalcade, and you set up. Sometimes you'll set up shop and do a whole bunch of stuff. What other stuff really do we feel is being impacted here? Like, I mean, for one, one of my own personal things that I love to do is I love to go to Artist Alley. I love to go shop for some back issues, but there's so much more that gets missed by, just having something like this.
Jim, technically it's all getting disrupted, right? Yeah. I mean, what are you talking about? So all those things that the reasons we go to San Diego Comic-Con, a New York Comic-Con, any convention anywhere across the country, are for reasons that are different than when we sit on a couch and watch TV, which is essentially what people would be doing right now. Right. And so there's a physicality to it. You get to go see, you get to go walk around, have sort of interaction with tens of thousands of people. As we know, that interaction is now at times a bad thing in our society. So that gets taken away. So the curiosity is, which is why I like this panel, and they're doing something, is I still believe that we need to interact with the fans anyways. Like, if we can't do it physically, we're going to have to interact with them like right now and talk about some of the things that we're doing. We can't answer their questions directly, although there are ways to do that, and we should discuss that. But it's a brand new world, and we're not going to know what's happening. Here's what I do know, though. Here's what I do know, and I'd be curious your input on this one is to go to one of these big conventions. Everybody who normally went comes at a cost, right? And I'm talking a monetary cost.
Yep.
And so somebody from North Dakota spends $750 on an airplane ticket. Then they have to get their room and board.
Yep.
Then they have to pay for food. Then they have to get their ticket.
Yep.
Probably a bunch of to get into the show. Then they have to do probably a bunch of Ubering and Lyft.
Yep.
Stuff like that.
There's getting around town.
So you're probably $1,500 that you haven't even begun to get autographs yet, right? Or something. And so now all those same people who, if they're lucky enough that have stability with their job and their economics, that $1,500 is sitting in their pocket and they didn't spend it trying to get to San Diego, right? So what's interesting is I'm starting to talk to store owners and people who do internet that they're seeing an uptick in geekdom via the internet, which is and I'd be curious if there are some people who go, why was I spending $750 on a plane ticket when I could have got $750 of cool stuff through the internet delivered to my house and put it up on a shelf, right? So it'd be interesting to canvass people when we get back to normal as to whether they think the conventions are worth the $1,500 to be in the room with so many other people, or having $1,500 of geeky stuff.
Right. Well, let's talk about that for a second, because one of the biggest things about Comic-Con are the exclusives, right?
Correct.
And people are waiting on lines for sometimes hours at a time to spend maybe something that, one or two things, maybe $35, so maybe $50 or whatever, but the aftermarket value on that, it skyrockets, right? There's always 2 or 3 items from the show that no matter what will be selling for crazy amounts of money. As someone who makes toys, do you think because now that, I mean, now you're seeing a lot of people, you know, they're making the exclusives because they already had them in production before all this. Do you think they upped their quantity to sell online? And if they did, what kind of effect do you think, what kind of like sort of trickle down effect do you think that has?
Well, let's just sort of tackle it in bits and pieces.
Sure.
The exclusive during a window that normally was called San Diego Comic-Con or any convention,
Right.
you can sell it anytime, anywhere, any place, right? So if you want an exclusive during that week, there's a bunch of us that can give you an exclusive. You don't have to necessarily go to the shows, and you don't have to necessarily even come to our booth. We can just sell to you through the internet if we want. So people are going to see that the people who built it in advance of there being a convention are just going to find another way to get it into the hands of people. So the delivery mechanism gets a little wobbly, and you have to know where it's going to be, because the upside of being in one big giant room is that you know it's all under that one roof.
Yep.
So if you've got the time, you could pick up 8 or 10. You would have to know the 10 companies that are doing 10 different things and what their 10 website addresses are, or I'm guessing that somebody's going to get ambitious and try and actually consolidate it and be the go-to de facto convention exclusive person, and there'll be all 10 or 15, and maybe they just take a little small commission, and you can do the same thing. Will they make more or less? I don't know. It depends on who the companies are and what kind of demands we're seeing once we get the data, right? My guess is that obviously the people who made it, they weren't going to add to it. I don't know that people who hadn't done it were going to say, my God, I'm going to make twice as much because I'm going into this new unknown thing that's never happened before, and I'm going to double my risk. I don't see that either, right?
Okay.
If anything, there may be less exclusives that are available that may make the ones that are out there maybe a little bit harder to get, because you'll have the same number of people who look for exclusive, but there may be a smaller amount of them.
Interesting. Yeah, because I think, you know, for me, there's always one or two that I'm always going after, and I know like I will maybe there's 3 that's usually on my list. I may only maybe get one, but you know, for me, I've been, you know, just in looking at stuff to see like, oh well, maybe there's a chance for me to get it online, and then like I feel like I'm going to be heartbroken when a website crashes, and then I'm like, oh, this was supposed to be easier.
Yeah. Now, like I said, since sort of about March, when the country has sort of got this gut punch, the world's got a gut punch. You're seeing that there are obviously disruptions, but those disruptions are now presenting pros and cons depending on who you are and what your business models are, right? So, for instance, my company, you know, your company, we don't need a bunch of people congregating in one spot, right? Sure. We're not Hollywood. We're not trying to make the next Avengers movie that is a very difficult, right now, impossible task to do. We can, at my company, I can still make toys, comics, do, you know, conversations with fans, everything that you normally would doing, minus that you can't physically touch each other. For my entire corporation, there's no job that I go, oh my gosh, you know, too bad. Everybody is at home. That I sent everybody home 3 weeks ago, and it hasn't slowed down our production of making toys and or comic books. But what was slowing us down was people couldn't go to the stores, and or there was no comic books being printed, right?
Right.
Which was a bigger conversation of when are they going to open up, which is one of the reasons why I ended up doing the Kickstarter that you and I had spoken about on another channel, which was just to keep engaging people. Oh, and by the way, there's this reallocation of money, I think, because people can't go to bars, they can't go to movies, they can't go to restaurants. You maybe can't even go on a trip. You can't go to Disneyland or something like that. So can't go to conventions. I mean, all this stuff. But again, if you're one of those people that still has a steady job, that money's still there that you were normally allocating elsewhere. And now
Sure.
you're at home and you go, wow, I can geek out and still have half of it still left, right?
Mhm.
So for us in the geek business, it's actually, I haven't heard a lot of people overly complain. I don't know what you're hearing out in the
Mhm.
marketplace, but if anything, I'm hearing that internet sales for a bunch of these people are going up.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean that's been the biggest thing that I have noticed, that retailers who already had a digital presence or an ability to ship from their store or whatever, it's been business as usual and maybe then some. Like I know some of the there are some retailers who have some significant back issue collection on their website, and they've been doing fine. Um, and I think that the biggest thing is just like, when was new product going to come in? Because you could only sell, some of the old stuff for so long. So let me ask you, like, you know, there's a weird dynamic, because there's also a large number of comic shops that just don't have that. They don't have that ability. And so how does, for someone who is making comics, who is making collectibles, how do you determine, how to shift your schedule to be able to kind of accommodate when things may start opening back up?
Right. So the honest answer is I don't really know. I don't have any answers any more than anybody else. All I can do is make decisions for what it is that we do. What I've been saying since the beginning is that we should be loyal to the institutions that got us to where we're at.
Sure.
In our business for comic books, those are the comic shops. We have
Mhm.
to, right? We have to be loyal, but not to a fault. Not to a fault. And here's what that means to me. It doesn't mean that you figure out back ways to go there. It just means that I have to keep a precious eye on what the reality is that's happening out there. Because if I'm putting all my eggs in one basket, which my mama told me never to do, and I find that system starts to show some obvious cracks,
Yeah.
then you have to have a bit of an alternate play, or you become a bit of a dinosaur, right?
Sure.
I assume to some extent it was some of the thinking that led to why DC moved away from Diamond.
Well, so that's what I was just
Is
about to
that,
ask.
is that somebody at a high ranking level, somebody at Marvel, somebody at DC said, who's not really a comic geek on any level,
Sure.
said, we are $1 billion company. And you're telling me that my entire library of, or like source material, which is these comic books,
Hmm.
is now completely shut down because there's only one way to get books into people's hands, right? And I'm guessing it was just a business person that said create options for me, right? We can't be at the mercy of one institution, no matter how right those decisions were, right?
Hmm.
Diamond shut down for the safety of their employees. It I think was the right decision, but it ended up shutting down an entire industry, which
Hmm.
is okay for some of us that don't have shareholders and don't have sort of stock options and all those other things that drive people's sort of day-to-day decision making. And somebody just said, hey, make sure that we get the comic books, and we should probably be prudent in thinking about the future 10 years from now, because what if it happens again?
Hmm.
And I think those are the ongoing conversations that are there. So for me, what it means, Jim, is I want to be as supportive as I can. But if nobody's there was that time, remember, there was no shops,
Yep.
and there's open, and a lot of them weren't open because there's no comic books coming in.
Yep.
My question I was always asking was, what if they don't print comic books for 2 years? What are we supposed to do?
Mm.
Just hold our breath? I think that we would bleed some of the people that are listening to this conversation right now. They'll go, well, no comic books, no geek stuff. Oh, somebody else is engaging us to the left, doing some other geeky stuff that's really fun. I'll just spend my time over there. And my fear is that if we let them do that, then when we get back to printing, and let's say it was 2 years later, we might not get them all back because they're actually being entertained somewhere else. So my question was always, when we were shut down, what if this goes, what if this goes a long time? Nobody was asking that question. Nobody was asking the question. I also would add one more piece. Hollywood is shut down.
Yep.
TV and movies are shut down. And people were saying, well, why don't we just wait till everybody opens up? I guess I'm too entrepreneurial. Why would we, the little brother and sister called comic book community, why would we wait until the big giant one got back and was able to steal all the oxygen out of the room again?
Right.
If anything, this is where opportunity comes. I'm saying they're not entertaining people right now. That's an opportunity for us to entertain people, right? Because we can do it from a distance, and we can print from a distance, we can ship from a distance, and we can get it into people's hands. Our system is built to basically do it from a distance. Instead of being shy about that, we should be embracing it and taking advantage of it.
So do you think DC made the right move then?
From their corporate standpoint, that they've created options, I'm guessing they checked the box. They checked the box. It's strange to me that their answer to finding diversity would be, let's go from a distributor to essentially people who run stores, right? That's like, it seemed like if I was CEO, I'd want to go in the opposite direction, right? I'd say who delivers, who distributes Sports Illustrated and GQ and TMZ, right? Let's go from them.
Yeah. So you say you go more towards the folks who are doing distribution at a larger scale. So even from a book market, there's plenty of other options there. That makes sense. I've also seen though a big jump in the web comics space. I think a lot of people have had a lot of time to do a lot of things, and we're seeing some pretty phenomenal stuff from a wide array of talent. Is now the best opportunity, you think, for new talent to get noticed while there's necessarily not that many new books on shelves right now?
I think out of necessity, it's an outlet that they may have to scratch, because one of the ways that they were doing it, you can still send your samples through the mail. You can still post it on your website or through sites like DeviantArt and whatever else. But they lost that place called conventions, right? I mean, you said it earlier. We all go to Artist Alley, where you just get foot traffic and people just discover you and go, oh my gosh, and your notoriety can go up a little bit. I mean, at the end of the day, your notoriety is only as good as your skill set. But having people see you a lot, and that was happening at conventions because, there's tens of thousands of people walking down those alleys over the course of 4 days. It's been taken away from them, so they're going to have to get inventive. So yes, my guess is that the people who hustle, the entrepreneurial part of them, is saying, I had something on this side taken away from me. I'm going to have to create something else over here to offset it so I can get people to look at it. The thing that's interesting is, for the last few years, I've been a bit of a dad, talking to a lot of, I'm getting that old, I'm becoming a dad. Talking to a lot of artists who were completely reliant on shows for a big part of their income.
Okay.
And I was advocating that I thought that they should still be doing comic book work, not just doing convention sketches.
Sure.
Even though I know it's good money, and in some cases it's a lot easier money than doing comic book. My argument was that you're not building a personal reputation and of your career. And the example is, I can go to Artist Alley, they can go into Artist Alley, they can draw a Spider-Man head, I can draw a Spider-Man head. I'm going to get at least 10, if not 20 times more for my Spider-Man head. Why is that? Right?
Right.
Because I built a career, and so have hundreds and hundreds of others, doing the actual comic book. I keep telling them that no matter how good you are, and I think, Jim, that there is more talent today in comic books than at any time in my lifetime. I walk up and down the artist alley and I am dazzled at the level of skill of drawing artistically. It is staggering. And yet within the confines of that, very few of them that do that sort of as their full-time gig have broken out and have made a name and a reputation. So that we are sitting in the year 2020, and this is my frustration on one side, my glee on the other, is that people like Greg Capullo and Jim Lee and Frank Miller and Adam Kubert and John Romita Jr., myself, that were relevant as old men, right? When we broke in, when all of us, that group broke in, the old guys were 10 years older than us. They were 35. We were 25. They were 35. We were trying to knock off 35-year-olds. The 55-year-olds, they were long gone, or they were obsolete. And something's a little bit odd that we're still relevant, especially when I see the skill. Because I go, oh, God, you are way more a better artist than almost every one of those names that I mentioned. But you're just taking the easy route, which is going to the conventions and doing it. And so now maybe some of them may be forced to do something slightly different. I don't know, Jim, if doing a web comic book is it. But we're going to see. We're going to see.
Well, so you've had even on your own book, Spawn, even on Spawn, you've had a number of artists and talent, come and go from that book. How is Todd McFarlane in the year 2020 looking at potential new talent for his stuff?
I look for, as a matter of fact, if anybody's listening to think you're good enough, send me your portfolio, right? Art skill will always find a home. There's two things that are a little bit frustrating for me. One is the person that I was telling you about that just wants to go to conventions and draw. Why? I would have said the exact same thing, Jim, because they're saying, Todd, you're going to pay us X to do a comic book. I can go to 3 shows in a month and I can make more than X, right? Yeah. Less work, more money. Why would I take your gig? They're absolutely right. Mathematically, it's sound. What I keep saying is, well, you're not building your career, and so you're going to always be at the marketplace level of what you can charge. You're never going to be able to charge 10 times more like I can for that exact same sketch. So at some point, it's going to matter. It's going to matter. Not right now. I understand you're young and the cash is good. But it's going to matter, and you're going to get a little bit older, and manual labor is like you to me, you want to sort of reverse it. You want to put in the hard work in your 20s so that you can sort of relax in your 50s and 60s, right? They're engineering the other way. They're taking the easy route a little bit now, and then if they become obsolete or there's no conventions or the whole system breaks down, then they're going to have to do the manual labor when they get older, if they can basically keep it up, because the 20-year-old kids have way more energy and they're gonna do it anyways. So there's a frustration there of just trying to get people to do comic books. Forget a monthly, just 3 or 4 issues. Then there's the other one, the other head scratcher, and I had one of these yesterday, and I continue to have them, in which, because my conversations are getting shorter. Let me just say, when I'm talking to artists, I don't want to talk to you about image. I don't want to talk about Spawn. I don't want to talk about, I just, at some point, just go, why are you doing this? Do you have a family? And does putting food on the table matter? If the answer is yes to you, then my answer is, if you come and do a book for me, I will pay you more than you've ever been paid in your life, right? Period. And yet, that conversation lands about 20% of the time.
Wow.
So I have these ongoing conversations with people that just go, well, I've been working at Marvel and DC for a while, and I'm doing this book. It's an obscure book. it's like number 144 on the sales. So it's not even if you're doing X-Men or something, I get it, but you're doing a book that's number 144. You know, I ask them what their page rates are because I go, shit, I'll beat anything you got. And they're getting paid what I think is sort of like atrocious amounts from professional big companies, Marvel and DC. And I go, shoot, in some cases I can double it. I can give you 100% increase right now. If you're going to work 8 hours a day, you can either work for $1 an hour or $2 an hour. Which one? Which one? And it is staggering how many of them take the dollar, because it's like they have either an affinity to the book, they have an affinity to the business, to a character, they have an affinity to something else. At times, I will try and get the wife or the husband or somebody else around them and talk sense to them and say, hey, just so you know, I've offered twice as much money for the same amount of work. They say no, they'd rather bring home half the money to you and work like a dog. Okay, I don't know. And oh, by the way, I plot very easily. So I because as an artist, I'll make sure that they will draw faster by the way that I plot. And it is amazing. It is amazing to me how many of them still go, well, you know, maybe I'll get back to you in a year.
So are you so is that where you're looking? Are you looking at who is currently doing work, or are there places, you know, are you looking?
I think both.
Is there online, you know, places that haunts that you go to online to see what folks are doing?
I look at all the art websites. I look at, you know, Instagram and Facebook, and I like any place where anybody's posting stuff. I'm always phoning sort of, you know, either complete unknowns or somewhat unknowns. Although as a business, again, if I can get one of the big fish, like why not, right? And all I've got to offer them is I don't have Spider-Man, I don't have Batman. All I have to offer you is you work 8 hours a day, you make $8, I'll pay you 12, right? I mean, at some point, like, how much do you love your character and how much do you want to put food on the table, right? So there's a practical sense, especially as you get older. I mean, I understand when you're in your 20s and 30s, but as you get a little bit older, there's a practical sense of what we do with our work and how we want to allocate our time. And if you can get paid twice as much, most people for the same job, most people that I employ, if somebody came in and offered them twice as much for the same job, they'd quit my business.
All right, so I know we've got a number of other things that we got to talk about. Before we get to some of that stuff, I do want to ask you about, you know, just sort of like the comics and the industry and shops and kind of in general, as stuff is starting to open up, and, you know, more, and, you know, comics are starting to trickle back into shops. Do you feel that the publishers themselves are doing enough to drive people back into stores? Like, it's great when you have something like, you know, fellow Image partner, you know, Robert Kirkman doing a Negan Lives one shot that he, you know, is just getting out there to comic shops. That's awesome. But do you feel like everyone else in the space is doing enough? Like, and if not, what do you think it needs to drive people back in?
I would say the answer is no, myself included. And what I think that needs to happen is that a bunch of us we're just scrambling to just try and figure out, what does it mean to be shut down?
Sure.
What are our options? So we're now, you know, partially open, at least the books are printing. Now we have to start making decisions. I think, Jim, it has to be a collective effort. Robert Kirkman's one book, and God bless him for doing what he did, is not going to save this industry. What has to happen is that 12 companies times 100 books have to try and do something, whether it's a story, giving you extra pages, you know, doing some bonus stuff, anything times 100 will then have an impact overall than just sort of these one-offs, right? And so let me give you an example of something I'm thinking of. Every store that orders Spawn, I ship them 20%, but they don't have to pay for that 20%, right? So, but again, if you bought 20 spawns and now I'm giving you an extra 4 for free, okay, at $3, 3 times 4, it's only $12. It's not going to save your company. But what if 100, 200 other books were doing the exact same thing, right? Then the $12 turns into $1,200. And can we afford to do it on our books? And I'm not saying that's an answer. I'm not even, it's one of the options I'm looking at or whatever. I'm just saying that it's a way to basically give a little bit to every store, depending on their size and their scale, but we're going to need it done hundreds of different ways so that the nickels add up to real dollars. And the dollars will get there if what we're selling is also has some meaning. So again, having some big events, right? You know, I mean, Walking Dead's back, cool. You know, a crossover here or there, the death of a character, somebody gets married, all the things that have worked historically in our business. Why wouldn't they work again? Of course they will. And so if we start to focus on those things, then I think there's a chance. There's also the piece that's interesting too, Jim. I think stores are reallocating their budgets, right? Store owners are saying, I've got, let's use round numbers. I have $1,000. I used to buy 1,000 books with my $1,000. Now they're saying, I don't know what the future holds for me. It's a little bit scary for all of us. So I may now be reallocating my $1,000, but I may only be buying the top 700 books. Because if I'm going to have an extra book, I'd rather it be a top 100 book than a bottom 500 book. So my guess is that the people that are going to feel the pinch a lot more, publishing-wise, are going to be the people whose books are selling way down the charts, and the ones that are in the top 200, the known quantities. I mean, if I'm betting right now, given that there's so much unknown, I would put my money in known quantities of product. And I'd rather have an extra of whatever the hot number one or big event book is that's coming out than having the 12th best publisher's 15th best book in my store. I think you're seeing it. And my only minor piece of data, a little bit, I see what's happening with the numbers when we have to get the new orders for the stores opening for Image. That the decrease wasn't quite as much. I think part of it is because we're the number 3 company. But Spawn specifically, exact same book, same creator, was right in the middle of a 2-part story, right? I mean, so it's close to apples as I could get. Same art, same inking, same story, same character, same everything. One came out, pandemic, we got shut down, and now 307 it just came out. So 306 before, pandemic, 307. 307 came out, we had to get the orders. Orders were 15% higher than 306. So the pandemic gave me a boost in sales, right? Why would that be? My guess is maybe there's, you know, the Spawn, the characters, you know, buzzing a little bit more, getting momentum. But I'm guessing it's more that Spawn's, after close to 30 years, is a known book and is a top 50 title. So if you're going to have an extra, why wouldn't you have X-Men, Spider-Man, Spawn sitting there than something else that's unknown? We've seen it with Image, that the biggest drops in our book were the ones that had never been published before, that nobody knew what they were.
Well, you also know, like, and to me, one of the tactics that I always thought was pretty brilliant that I wish we'd see more, especially now, is like Marvel used to do it a bunch. Image did it quite a bit, where they would kind of like Trojan horse a new series with a big established one, right? Like, you know, where, you know, they would be an issue of X-Men and then maybe the first half of another upcoming issue or something that may be coming out in a week or has already been out. There's like weird little tricks and things like that that I think, you know, help kind of, because what what I think also hurts those other books is the visibility, right? Like everyone knows who Spider-Man is, everyone knows who Spawn is, everyone knows who Batman is, but the visibility on that under 500 book, like the publishers aren't necessarily doing themselves any favors by not trying to prop some of those books up.
But here's what I think is gonna happen though. There's going to be a little bit of lightning in a bottle, right? By a couple titles, just by the new process that we have. Marvel cuts 20 of their bottom titles. DC cuts 20 of their titles. Image isn't giving a yes to people who want to do creator rights. So people that were working at Marvel, DC, they can't get their book published at some of the other publishers, they have no choice but to self-publish, right? Which is what you talked about earlier, going on the web. And then if you go on the web and you get, or you self-publish and you get 100, 200 new titles, the law of averages says that 1 or 2 of those is actually going to hit, right? And that all of a sudden we're going to have maybe our new saga is going to come along, right? I can't use Walking Dead because that got too crazy big, so I don't want to give that false hope. But Saga Down, I think is doable, and somebody is gonna by accident just get there because they're not getting the normal opportunities that they normally would have been drawing the 4th book of Wolverine, but they got kicked off the book. So now they got to go do their own thing, and all of a sudden, serendipitously, they're going to start their own book, and people are going to like it, and boom, somebody in Hollywood's going to come along and go, it's a hell of an IP, bang, and you're off to the races, and like, who knew, right? there will be a lot of carcasses along the road to get to those, but it still means that those opportunities are still alive and well. I think so. Yep.
All right. Let's show some new stuff. You've got some new stuff coming out. Where you've got on the toy front a new line. So you've been crushing it with the DC line. You've been crushing it with all the other licensed stuff that you've got. But it looks like you're coming back to creatures.
Yeah. So we want to do some stuff. I mean, I'm going to see if I can pull something here. Can you see if over by Stefan's desk there's a couple of the prototypes of some of the DC stuff? I think it looks sexy.
Sweet.
But yeah, so let's just sort of go through it. I mean, how we're maintaining. Let me just tell you, Jim, the toy business has usually weathered economic downturns pretty well. And the reason is, I think, besides, I mean, there's a lot of reasons, but 2 of the big reasons are that cheap plastic goods are cheap. So people may not buy a new car, may not go to Disneyland, may not, buy a big screen TV. Is there any DC stuff? Right by where that's his desk where he used to have it. But what they won't begrudge is a $10 or $12 buy to their child.
Sure.
Right. Especially at Christmas. What are you going to do? Right.
That's always something that you have been a huge proponent of is finding that right price point and trying to figure out a way to deliver quality at that price point,
right?
And get it out.
And it's interesting because a lot of people, even when I'm at a show, and if I was at a show, they give me comparisons. Why can't you do this and this and this with your toy? And invariably, most of the time when I get that comment from people, they're talking about a $60 to $120 toy, right? Like, if you want me to charge you $80, I'll make it partially out of gold. What are you talking about? We'll do it, right? That's easy. I'm saying I have to give you the most value that I possibly can within a $20 frame, because for 2 reasons. One, I can get shelf space at that price.
Sure.
Right. And there's always this conversation with people that it's like, would you rather have all of what I do, given that I'm forced to do certain things because Walmart and Target and Amazon, whoever else, dictate policies to me? This is the piece that I don't think that people who don't sort of run a business understand. I get forced into boxes, and sometimes people ask me to do something that I would love to do, but the retailers are asking me to do the opposite.
Sure.
But if I do the opposite, they will then buy everything that I give them and put it up on a shelf. And then if they put it up on a shelf, then there's more selection to the fan. So I'm only as good as the people who say yes to me. Now, again, I understand. I could do some of the stuff and sell it direct to the consumer, and I can go through the internet. Let me just give you, at least from my data, I don't know, talk to any other toy company data. We sell way more toys at stores than we do online. So, and I'm not talking about spawn.com. I'm talking about walmart.com, target.com. Like, they still, the majority of toy action figure sales are still bought at stores, at the store level. And until that changes, then they're still going to be doing it. And I don't even have to have the data. And you can come to me and give me 5 examples, somebody there in fandom who says, no, this company's doing great. And let's just assume that Walmart has enough money to have vetted this conversation, right? They know where their bread is being buttered. And so they will shift to that model when they think they can make more money. Yep. Right now, it's not there for them. Obviously, it's exclusive to Amazon or whatever else. But my job is to just say, you want an item, it has to come in a box that's this size. It's dictated to me. This is the size of the box, not only the height, but sometimes even the width. Because they need to get so many of these on a shelf.
On a peg,
right?
Yep.
Because they put them on a peg and they go, hey, we put 4 on a peg and there has to be so many, and we want 4 on a peg at all times so that it becomes easy for the stock boy to come in and go, hey, it's empty. I open up a case of 4 or 8 and I put it on the 2 empty pegs that end up getting there. So everything that I do has to get designed within that right there. So could I do cooler capes? Absolutely. Did we do a cooler cape when we did our Kickstarter that was way, 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 way bigger than all that? Of course we did, right? Why? Because I wasn't going to the normal places that basically do all of that. So was I able to do a big cape like this for my Kickstarter? Here it is. Yeah, but this can't fit into this.
Nope.
And so we have to just come up with different versions of it. So what can we do with it? The answer is, then you come up with toys that, and this is a DC figure. And make him like as big as our figures are, and we do big figures, right? As big as our figures are, this dude is like twice the scale. And if you look at him in the box, as you can see, if I put him in front of the box, he barely fits.
That fits in the box? I didn't think that was going to fit.
Well, he's sculpted so he just fits.
He just fits.
So when I measured this box, I went to my sculptors and go, that's how wide we need to make this dude. Right? And we had an issue. I don't know if you know, we got to do testing, and they call it drop test, and they literally drop it. It's not as complicated as you think. They literally drop product and drop it to see if any of the batarangs and things fall out, right? Because people are playing with it at the stores and it always drops. The drop test with this guy is that you're getting what they call paint transfer, which basically means that a little bit is rubbing off on the plastic. And so they were asking me the other day, going, Todd, we got a bit of an issue. We're getting a little bit of paint transfer. And my answer was good. Good, because that means it shows how big that dude is, that he is just so big in the package. There is so much plastic.
He is just bursting out.
Oh, he's bursting out. Like, if you tell me Wonder Woman's getting paint transfer, I'm going to be a little more sensitive about that.
Sure.
But that my big Mondo dude is getting, like, what are you talking about, right? So we're going to sit there. Now, if I make them bigger, there are some limitations to how good the articulation can be. I can't give this guy 100 articulated point, but I can tell you, he's got a big foot and he bends around, and we've got a couple of the early tests that came here. This guy can stand on 1 foot and do a ballerina pose. So he's still pretty good. He's got a waist bend and whatever else in him. But if you just want the normal stuff, then again, I put a photo of this up on, then we just go back to what I think McFarlane is known for, which is just doing cool, detailed stuff on designs that already pre-exist.
Wow.
Right? So you're going to get all the gear on them. You're going to get all the stuff. We're also doing, for lack of a better word, chase figures.
Okay.
Rare figures. We used to chase figures when we were doing sports. That we want to take like a small portion of them and do something slightly different. We'll put a sticker on it so people know, so they don't have to sort of rummage if it's just, we make the Batarang clear. We'll put a sticker so that, if you got one with a sticker, that you got one of the hard to find ones. But there's a part of me that says, man, we should, as part of it, some of them should just be these, what I call artist proofs, these ones with this flat on there, because the detail on these things is never better than when you have it like this. The moment I have to take this character, which it is, black on black, when it starts to cast shadows, you start losing detail. And it becomes a little bit frustrating because you don't quite see the detail because you're casting a black shadow on a black pouch, right? But when you've got no paint on it and stuff, you can get some cool detail in places that you normally wouldn't. And again, we with some of the stuff that's sort of the metal characters, things that are coming out there, we're gonna be doing vehicles. So I know that we got a decent amount of pub on our first wave of DC Multiverse. The second wave is coming out. I'm telling you, I know what we're working on, Jim, for the upcoming stuff, and it's all in this kind of vein with a bunch of cool, super highly detailed, all the stuff that to me sort of put me on the map, right?
Nice.
Like I mean, the designs were there, but I'm trying to sculpt it so we're getting sort of McFarlaneite product, and then having a little bit of fun with it. And then we're some of the stuff that we're doing, and this is where you have to diversify a little bit, right? Try to find some of the outlets. The single best-selling item for us for the last 3 months has not been a figure, right?
What has it been?
I know it's, and we're not even hardly even advertising it. You haven't even heard because you just asked me the question, what is it? You should know what it is because we haven't really got that hunger with it. What it is this remote control shark, right? And it's this little guy. It's called Shark. And you put him in the water, and as soon as he goes in the water, he starts to swim, and the tail goes, and it looks super realistic, right?
Oh wow!
And it comes with the remote control. So if you have a swimming pool, or you can take it out to a lake or something, you can actually drive around it with not doing very much advertising. This is our number one item at Walmart over Batman.
Wow!
Right? So are we going to come up with more? The crocodile? Yeah. Are we going to start trying to see if we can license some stuff? Yeah. Wouldn't you like to see a Godzilla, because he swims in the water, a Godzilla swimming in the water instead of a generic shark? Sure you would. And then one of the other things we've been talking about, Jim, is, I've been making toys for a long time, and I do licenses and stuff like that. But sometimes when you do license, let me just tell you, all licenses are not created equal, right? You sometimes just want to put a nail in your head with some of the decision making and what they approve and what they don't approve and what they want you to do. So it gets frustrating at times. And so this is why I keep saying I keep doing the Spawn comic book and the Spawn toys, because it's my breath of fresh air. Whatever I want to do, we just come up with it. I approve it in 10 seconds. We're done. Boom, done. And we get there. So we've been talking to some of the stores and look at some of their generic stuff. I go, I'll give you some generic stuff. What are you looking for? Tell me what you want. And they go, we want product aimed at young kids at a value, right? Sure. So we've got coming up in August our first generic line that we're calling the Raw 10. And the Raw 10, I think it's a cool name anyways. So here's the word, Raw.
Nice.
But it allows me to do stuff like, are you the most rotten kid on your block, right? Show me the most rotten photo you've got, right? Whatever. I'll be able to do a bunch of it. So let me just show you a couple of the items we got there. Here's one of them, right? And to just put it in perspective, here's my Kickstarter toy. He's big. He's almost 7 inches, right? But if I put my Kickstarter next to this guy,
oh man,
right? That's the scale. Here's the thing. This is $20.
That big thing's $20?
Yeah, sure.
Holy moly.
So $20 action figures,
Yep.
and I think they're great, and I think you should buy all of those too. But for the mom that's got an 8-year-old kid that wants something, their kid can now buy something that is 3 times bigger, 4 times the amount of plastic, $20. $20,
Nice.
right? So we're going to be having the raw 10. There's 4 figures that it comes with. It comes with that one. You get the big shark. This is because sharks, they like sharks, right? The mouth opens, the tail moves, whatever else. And then we've got our $9 items, $9.99 items, because those are what we call shut me up toys for moms, that it's like, fine, just pick a toy and let's get out of the place. So people like the kids, obviously the kids like
cool.
dinosaurs.
Love dinosaurs.
And we got our big giant snake. And again, to put it in scale, right?
It's still big.
The $9 toy is still going to be more plastic than the $20 toys. And so here's what I'm hoping for, is that people will see the value. They go, oh my gosh, $20, all that plastic. I've never made a toy that's big that hasn't sold. I'm hoping this is true, and that then they'll let me continue to just come up with crazy ideas, and I don't have to get approval. Since I don't have to pay a royalty, and I don't care about my profits, I'm not a public company, I can put the money into the product so I can give you more plastic, and who cares whether I'm getting rich off it or not? Let me be that. That'd be my problem, right?
Right.
My attitude is, let me just make a nickel off each one, and if I sell 1 million of them, then it will be worthwhile. And so my theory has always been in business, give them the most value at the smallest price. And then if you have a brand on top of it, it's even easier. I don't. We're, obviously Raw 10's sort of a new generic one, but and same with the Shark. But if they think they're getting a value out of it, we're actually, this thing, the remote control Shark is so popular, we're going to be doing like a little $7 one that's this big. You can then just throw into the water. So now, why would I do that, Jim? We're going back to the same conversation we've been having. The world is changing, right? Yeah. And I don't know if the big companies are going to continue to make IPs, right? I don't know if they are going to make IPs, since they're making less, at least for the next year. They're going to start giving them to the Fortune 500 companies, and I'm going to get locked out because I'm not a big company. So I have to start thinking about survival in the long term and trying to do a couple of things just in case the world gets crazy. I've got to protect ourselves, and if it means I got to go back to doing things like the McFarlane Dragons, which we're gonna, and Tortured Souls and all those crazy ideas we used to have, then the things that put me on the map toy-wise, then let's go there. If that's the new model, then that's going to be the new model. But we've been around long enough that what I'm hoping for is that the dad that comes in, or the mom that goes to buy it for Father's Day, that buys this because their husband's 37, also have a 6-year-old kid. And then maybe I can get them to pick up 2 things, and they'll do there. We're as bizarre as it is, we're getting more space post-pandemic than we had pre-pandemic for our toys at the big retailers. Go figure. So why? I don't know. But when somebody says they'll buy more of your product, you just keep giving it to them, right? So we're going to have a collector corner that is going to be there. Like I said, we're going to have maybe some signed stuff I'll sneak in, and some of the exclusive stuff and some of the Chase stuff. So as bizarre as it is, and what we did with the Kickstarter and the comic books going up in Hollywood, things are I'm probably the busiest I've ever been in my life.
Right.
Like the pandemic has been, I'm almost exhausted. I'm so busy every day.
It's keeping you busy. All right. We have about like 5-10 minutes left. And so I'd be hard pressed not to ask you, since you brought it up, the movie.
Okay.
How is it coming along?
Here's what's frustrating for, I'm sure, everybody listening. We've been talking about this for a long time, right? First, Jason came on, Jason Blumhouse, and then Jamie came on, Jamie Foxx, and then Jeremy Renner came on. And so you just keep adding. We are in the process of adding, like, again, and I've mentioned it to you a little bit, we lost somebody, but I'm just way too crazy of adding. I think not only a home run, but potentially a grand slam to our movie. And I'm not saying that as a teaser. I am saying that legitimately. It's happening. Yeah. It's happening right now. It's just that the business of Hollywood has its sort of ebb and flow in the pandemic, that they seem to be a little bit shy about wanting to be public about all this. So all I can say is that the movie is going full steam ahead. Like that I'm not saying that. I know I've said it before. I'm telling you, it's going full steam ahead. Mm-hmm. In terms of news that hopefully you and I will be able to break fairly soon. On the TV front, nobody's making TV, so there are writers and directors and producers that are normally you couldn't get them on the phone. Mm-hmm. That we are doing Zoom meetings 2-3 times a day now with all of them. So,
wow. So is this for Sam and Twitch, or is this for on the TV front?
Every idea I've dusted off, every idea that I've had, I've shown them other ideas that come out from Image. I don't care where they say yes, right? We just had a big call yesterday. I've got to do a follow-up one on Monday with it, with a bunch of kid programs, because again, you can do animation from a distance. Mm-hmm. So if you can't do a big, $100 million action movie, you can still do Pixar, right? You can still do kids programming, which we may have the early lead when we come out of it at the theaters. So all of it is getting developed. We just signed some writers to a TV project that hopefully we'll be able to announce here.
Mm-hmm. Is this all Spawn universe stuff, or is this also just additional McFarlane idea stuff?
Just you're in McFarlane's head, right?
Right. Okay.
In my head, although I do have stuff that's connected to Spawn, I also have other ideas that are segregated from it. Okay. And so people, they might not all want the sort of the dark gritty stuff, right? And all of it's going. And these are the people we're talking to are big, like they're big directors and big writers that are on there. And I assume we can get some of them, which we have, that will then be able to get big actors to come on to it, and the stuff will begin to tumble. Mm-hmm. Let me also say, I'm not the only one doing this. Right? Everybody in Hollywood has got time to develop. Everyone in Hollywood has time to make phone calls to all these people. So there may be a flood. And so even though we can get all this stuff into development and moving with big names, the people who actually have to say yes, they're gonna produce it when that time comes, may get flooded from every angle of every person who's been doing the exact same thing that we are. Mm-hmm. But I guess it's better that things are going full steam ahead, at least on some of the buying and development side, than nothing happening. So, it's at times, and I don't say it lightly, because I know there are a lot of people that are suffering in what's happening in the world, but I can honestly say that I am busier since March than I've been at almost any time in the last 5 years, minus the advent of Spawn 300 coming out and that being sort of a big sort of event, which is sort of strange. And so good for geekdom, right? Geekdom is alive and well.
Right. Awesome. Well, Todd, that's going to just about do it for today. I know over the course of Comic-Con, you at McFarlane.com and on your social media channels are going to be making some big announcements and giving some stuff away. So everyone watching here, make sure you go, follow Todd everywhere that they can to get in on some of that awesome stuff. Todd, I know we're, this isn't the normal Comic-Con, but this has been a ton of fun. So I appreciate you doing this.
Yeah. And let me just add one more thing too, is that,
sure.
that I think engaging the fans is a huge service. I want to tip my hat to people like you and your whole staff and your whole website for continuing to do that, to engage fans on any level of any interest of what it is that you guys do, because you guys do such a wide range of entertainment. I think it is a giant service that you're providing. And his sus, I know that you've been a good partner. Some of the things that we talked about, and I know it's frustrating when people say we can't break it, but we're just talking about right now, you know, the video being tied to San Diego Comic-Con.
Mm-hmm.
If something comes up prior to that or post that, it's still news. I'll make sure that you and your good folks get a piece of that, because you guys have been terrific to the community. Forget me, you've been terrific to the community, and I think that really is the greatest value going on right now, is us pros being able to still engage, and you guys are creating this outlet for us. You're our new comic shops in terms of news and information and whatever else. So I want to applaud not only you, but everybody that does what you do. Even if it's a podcast, it's only got 500 people. It's still healthy for us right now, for our geekdom, and just, I think, even our mental well-being, that we can still have outlets. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Todd.